if we look right there, you can see where I cut that metal out. I cut it, it was rotted out and rusted here. I went ahead and I went ahead and killed the rust on our piece right here. Now the owner wanted to go out the cheap route because he's on a very strict budget. He's got a newborn baby, he's got a wife, he's got a brand new house, blah blah blah. But he wanted me to fix that rust, and I said, what we can do, we can go ahead and use some rust preventive killer that will kill that rust, but I'm not going to go ahead and weld that. And he said that's fine, as long as it's structure sturdy and everything's cool, go ahead and leave it like that. Go ahead and kill the rest. So I did that. This is a big piece right here. Now I want you to look at that. It has a contour that comes down like this and then it rolls like that. All right, and you can kind of see that as it comes down and then humps over. And then we also got this edge right here that we got to keep. I could have cut this edge off right here, and I also could have got a patch panel where you cut it up here and then you replace this whole section. I didn't want to do that because I want to keep this body line right here. This is a factory fender. This is not an aftermarket fender. There's nothing wrong with this fender. The fender's in very, very good shape. It's a 1966 Chevy Impala. Minimal body damage on this fender, if any at all. And I wanted to go ahead and use this fender because of the fact that it's a factory OEM fender. So I told him what I'll do is I'll cut that out, and then we'll go ahead and cut another piece out of fresh metal, and then we will butt weld that in there. Now what this video is all about is I'm going to show you how to fit that piece of metal in there where it's real nice and tight and square, and all we're going to use is a hand grinder and a cutoff wheel.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
So if we look right here, you can see I got some scrap metal, and I just happen to have a piece that was in good shape right here in this area. And this is actually, I believe, 18 gauge or 20 gauge. I don't know which, but you know, 18 or 20 is what you want to use. Either or will work. Now, if you look at the pattern that I made, what I did is I took my 2-inch tape, I went ahead and went over the hole, and then I took my dirty gloves and I made an outline of the hole on the fender that we cut out. And that's an exact replica. You can see how it curves around right here where that door jamb would be, right in that area. And then this would be our straight side, and then this would probably be the top, and then that's the bottom. So what we're gonna do is take our cutting wheel right here. Now I got an air cutting wheel because I like to use this one here because you can cut very precise. And when I say precise, I can take that cutter and I can follow that line just like that. Because that's what we want to do. We want to get as precise as we can. Now, more than anything, this is probably going to end up a little bit bigger, and this is where our little hand grinder is going to come in, and we're going to take these two tools to manipulate our way to fit this piece in that hole. So before we start our job, always make sure that you're wearing a good pair of gloves. We got our safety glasses, and I'm also wearing ear protection because this is very loud. Now, when we cut this, I want to be on the outside of this line. All right, let me show you that one more time. You can't probably see it. On the outside of that line is where I want to be when I cut it. And the reason is because when I go back to clean that up with my grinder, I'm going to take some of that metal off, and it's going to make it smaller. So we want to start out by cutting our piece on the outside of the line that we traced on our fender. right, now that that's cut out, we're ready to start cleaning that thing up and fitting it into the fender. I want you to look real close there, and you can see that curve right here, and then there's also a curve right here, and then this isn't really as straight as we thought it would be, and then this has a curve like that. So it's really good to take your tape, cover the hole, and then take your fingers and go over the edges just like this, and you'll leave a black mark of where the pattern will be, and then when you put it on your metal, bam, there it is right there, and you got it cut out just like that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our little 2-inch Roll-O-Lock grinder. This is 36 grit on this, and we're going to clean the back side of it. You can see by using a cutting wheel how it put that burr on there, that lip, and then we're also going to clean the edges up, and then we're going to test fit it in there and see how it fits. All right, if we look at that right there, you can see this is the hole that we're talking about. Kind of visualize me putting 2-inch tape across that and then taking my finger and rubbing around the edges with my dirty gloves, and then it would leave a nice imprint. So that's what we did with the tape. I just wanted to go over that one more time. And if you go into any previous videos of me fixing and patching rust, you're going to see that's how I do it all the time. So tape is a very good tool, especially when making patterns or straight lines that you need when you're cutting metal. So we got our piece right here. Now I told you that it wasn't going to come out flawlessly, but I was going to make it where it had the curves and stuff. Now the reason this curves here is because of this hump right here. So we know we got to put a hump in it here, and then we got to kind of put a dip in it there, and then over here basically the same way. So once we get those in it, then what would happen, it'll start fitting in there. So we're going to start about right here. I kind of see where it ends up, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here where there's something round, okay, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of an angle. I'm just going to try to get my angle on it like I want it. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it. I'm just working it in to making it round, just like you saw me do right there. Now I think that's going to be too much, but we can always come back over here and take some of that out just like this, just prying on it. And then from this line here, I see where it goes like that. So we're going to go ahead and put our dip in it. So we're going to turn it around, and we're not going to put a big dip. We're just going to get it to where we're going to manipulate our way into what we need. So if you look right there, I don't know if you can see that. You can see where it curves like this, and then there's a hump right there. It looks like it might be a little high, but we're going to go ahead and see where it ends up. Okay, I see kind of where this has to curve over a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try to bend that, just the edge of it now. I'm just going to bend it down, okay, because this is the first step in fitting it in. Not everything's going to be flat. And if you're going to work with 20 gauge or 18, you can bend all this with your hand. You don't have to have hammers and what have you. We might take a hammer to it, I don't know, once we start welding, but right now all we're trying to do is fit it in here. So I see that this side over here is kind of funky. That's probably when I made my pattern, so I'm going to come over here to this side and concentrate on that. Now I will tell you one other thing. This might not fit flawlessly perfect, but it's going to be a good enough fit where we'll be able to use it to weld into the hole. All right, once we find the area that we want to keep, what we're going to do is we're going to scribe a line right down the side of this fender here. And the way that I'm going to do that is I am going to take a pencil, if I can get it out of my ear. I know I had one here. It is right there. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to scribe it down just like that. And then that should show us, okay, so we see that this is way too big right here. Now the way that we're going to fit that in there, since we already got this piece cut out, is we are going to actually fit the fender to the piece that we made, if that makes any sense. All right? So once again, I used my cutting wheel as a tool to get what I need out of that. Very handy item. So we're going to try to fit this in here again. It's going to take a few little seconds here. Okay, now we can see that that side is fitting very, very nicely. I like that. Look at that right there. Okay. We got a little bit of big of a gap here, but it's not big enough to really complain with. So now we got to figure this gap out right here. Right? And what we're going to do with that is we're going to kind of manipulate it to fit in there so we can use it. Because that's what this is all about. Manipulating our way to happiness. And I'm not going to use another piece of steel. I'm going to stick with this one because this is the last piece we got. Remember, this is it. And then I leave that right there. I'm going to take my pencil. I'm going to go like this. And now I got that line that goes across there. We're going to cut that off. And now what I'm looking at, I see that it's a little bit tight up here. So what I'll do now is I'll transfer over to my grinder. My little 2-inch grinding wheel that I got in my hand. Remember that? My little roll-out grinder. And now what I'll do is I see that there's just a little bit too much meat here and I don't want to cut any more of that off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave that down using my grinder. We're just going to take our time and fit it in here. Just like that. And now we got a nice fit across there. I like the way that fits. The gap down here is a little bit big, but I think we can live with that, and I'm going to show you how we'll fix it. The next thing we want to do is cut this corner off. Now, that's going to be a little tricky because we won't be able to trace it. What we'll have to do is kind of find the top, the bottom of it here, and then find the top, just like that, and we'll kind of have to draw our own picture. Do you see what I'm saying here? We'll kind of have to draw it. But we're going to go ahead and draw it just a little bit big so we can take our grinder and fit it in there using our grinder. Now a lot of people out there might be saying, why aren't you using tin snips? The reason I'm not using tin snips is because the tin snips will bend those edges over. Then I got to get my hammer out and all this other shit. I'm trying to do this with 2 tools. Now, I don't know if you noticed that, but I'm actually using the side of my grinder, my cutting wheel as a grinder. And when I say that, when I'm getting close to that line, I'll go ahead and grind it down using my cutting wheel. So now we're getting to the point where it's starting to fit pretty good. We just got to keep playing with it and manipulating it to fit. Now you can see where it's fitting real good here. We got a good fit here, but right along this bottom part it's not fitting. So what we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our pencil, we're going to mark it there, and then we're going to mark it right here, and then that'll give us a line where we need to cut that. And instead of cutting that, what I'll do is I'll take my roll-a-lot grinder, my little hand grinder, and what I'll do is I'll sand that edge down until I hit the pencil mark. Just like that. Then we'll go ahead and set it in there again. And that should fit in there where we want it. I see how it's dropping in on this edge. That's what we want. It's a little tight right here and it's a little tight right there. So now we can kind of eyeball that to make it fit. And then I think this corner here will be okay, let's see what we got now. And then, as you can see, I'm going to put my finger back there. As you can see, we have professionally fit this piece in as tight as we can get it, as best we can. We put our curve in it, we put our curve this way, and it fits very, very well. Now what I'll do down here is I will take some scrap. Let me find a piece when I get to that. And here's one right here. You can see that right there. And what I'll do is I will put this in here just like that, and I will weld that in there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off right now. See if we can get that cut off. And then, as you can see right there, once again, as you can see, I keep saying that, I don't know why, we will weld that in that spot right there, just like that, and voila, we have now fit our brand new piece of metal in that hole, only using 2 tools right there. You got a cutting wheel, and you got a little 2-inch Rollo-Lock 36 grit grinder. All right, this is a variable speed. I just want to let you know this is variable speed at the trigger. Along with this is variable speed. Very easy to control. It's very accurate once you get the hang of it. This does not have a guard on it. I take my guards off because I want to be able to see what I'm doing. All right, I don't want that blade to be hidden. That's why I'm wearing safety glasses and protection. But this is how it's done. This is the way you do it. And now we are ready to go ahead and clean up these edges right here and weld that baby in there. Let me get it welded in there. Once it's welded, we're going to take a look at it and see how nice it turned out. Now, I do want to remind you that I cannot ruin this lip. I don't want to manipulate this lip in any way. So I'm going to have to be very, very careful welding that lip on, because this lip, this edge right here, is where our door rides. And I don't want to mess that up. If you look in the background, I got another fender back there. It's ready to weld. And I fitted that piece in before I did this one. So we'll be back. Let me get that started welding. And we're going to see how it turns out. This panel has been welded into the fender. You can see that. We got a little bit of body work to do. We got some hammer and dolling to do. It looks like it's stretched out on us. So we got to go ahead and hammer and dolly that and get that back in shape. But other than that, it fit in there great. I like the way it fit. We only used 2 tools to do that job. I'm sorry, except for our welder, of course. And I think the job came out awesome. So if you want to fix rust and you have minimal tools, that's the way to do it right there. All you need is a cutting wheel and a small grinder to fit your metal piece in place. And once again, before we leave, I haven't welded this one in yet. I just want to show you that getting it precisely the best way possible, this does not fit 100% flawlessly perfect. You can see that. Using a MIG welder, you can go ahead and build your weld up around that, and that'd be fine. So don't let anybody say that you can't do it, because they're full of shit. If you want to do something, you got to get off your ass and do it. All right? That's all you got to do. Get off your ass, look at yourself in the mirror, and say, I am going to do this. If I fuck it up, guess what? I can do it over. That's all it takes. It's not the end of the world. It's not a ball buster, back-breaking job. Everything is fixable. And if you can't figure that out, then you are definitely a loser.
Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know everything.